All right, thank you all for being here. Appreciate the time and all the effort that goes into something like this. I know that your schedules are packed, and I know we're a few minutes late here, so I appreciate the patience. One thing I wanted to ask is, at the forefront, does anybody have any hot topics that they would like to bring up? I know that a lot of times that you might have a conflicting appointment or something like that that could be coming in as a challenge to stay here the whole time. So if you do, I would really appreciate if you could go ahead and offer some whatever that pressing topic might be. Another thing, this stream has a large lag to it, and so because of that, we might be sitting here for a while. Okay. Well, I'm going to take that silence as an okay to go ahead and get started. We'll just jump right into the touch point. I want to appreciate Tom Haas giving a few comments here in the chat, and I will be monitoring the chat throughout the night as we continue to build toward excellence, right? We want to build toward quality. We want to build toward fair business, which is ultimately what the value is that we're going for here. So as I'm diving into it, feel free to, jump in, interrupt me, or anything you want to do like that, because this is an informal environment. So let's all summarize, okay? So last week I think I'd left you guys with one task. I think there was one single deliverable that I thought would be good for the week, especially at the associate level. And as I talk about the associate level, I just want to be clear about what that means. So later on later on in the call, I will be discussing exactly what that means from an organizational chart standpoint, because I do think that as an organization, the way that you do that, if it's strategic and if it makes sense, and if it leads to good camaraderie, and it leads to good transparent communication, if it means that you're okay being a devil's advocate in a meeting or something like this. In fact, during even a touch point like this, when this is the C-suite communicating down all the way across the organization, I welcome that transparency. So I just want you to have that confidence, and if you could just keep that in mind, that'd be great. So that said, the single deliverable, does anybody know what that deliverable was last week that I had sort of tasked the group with for as we continue to grow and try to maintain that value across the organization? Well, so I had asked if the team could come to me with a good summary of what our conversation was last week, and some analysis on the metrics that I provided, and a good outlook into the future for what we want to do next. And 0 summaries were received last week from anyone across the entire organization. That includes people at the professional associate level, people in personnel, people in capital, merchandising, all across the organization. So I think that could be a point of improvement for us as we continue to get aligned to what the common strategy is. And no shame in that, but I will say, if it happens again, I don't know if I'm going to keep doing this. So I'm getting a few chats coming in here a little bit later. I think for next week during the touch point, I will address that. So I'm getting a lot of sense from the lower level right now that there's a lot of stress about that. And no worries, I am your leader, and you can fully trust that next week I will have that sorted out. It's just when I ask a question and one of the professional associates does answer, it takes a long time for it to come through. So if that's not clear to you as I'm talking, I don't know what else to say. That's about as clear as it can get. So tonight what we're reviewing are the deliverables and how that's going to ultimately focus. It's going to create momentum into the focus for what we want, which is our mission statement, and it's ultimately what we try to do when we create value. And I know that sounds like word salad, but every word was very important there. So what is our mission statement? All together now. Value creation through inspired transformation, unification, amplification, and fair business. And included this funny visual here on the slide. Does anybody know what this is? Does anybody know what this picture is or what it's referring to? Does anyone know? No? Okay. So this is a Rube Goldberg machine. And so I want our deliverable structure to function like a Rube Goldberg machine. So who is Rube Goldberg, you might ask? So I'm sure a lot of you are thinking, okay, so with a name like Goldberg, he must have been born somewhere in New York, likely. But no, actually, he was born in California sometime in the 1880s. And he was Jewish, but he was an engineer, and he was made famous for doing these things called Rube Goldberg machines. And so that's what you're looking at right here is something called a Rube Goldberg machine. And I'm going to ask if, bear with me a little bit here. I'm going to try to walk us through what this schematic is showing within this comic and how it relates to the deliverables that I've been talking about all night. So if you follow along through the process, as the man lifts the spoon up to his lips to help himself to some of the soup, it brings the string into tension, which then flicks up this piece of bread, this cracker, up to the bird by leverage. And so the bird takes off, grabs the cracker, in which case the weighted bowl then falls over, tips down some of these stones or whatever's in there into the bucket, which then triggers this this match here, which then lights the rocket and then cuts the string. And ultimately what you get then is this napkin that swings back and forth on the clock. So whatever soup or whatever remains might have got on his mustache or on his lips or whatever the case may be, it makes an automatic napkin that kind of goes like this. So it kind of wipes across and goes like this. So, and that was the ultimate goal, right? That's what the value is the napkin going like this. And so when we talk about the public company and what we're ultimately trying to do, this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to create that value. And ultimately, the deliverables that feed into that are all these different letters here that ultimately are going to result in the napkin that's going across the face and creates the value. Does that make sense? I know it's tough. If you've never heard of Rube Goldberg before, don't feel bad, but this is what he was known for. Like I said, he's actually pretty well known in the academic community. I did go to, when I went to graduate school, I don't know if he ever came up, but it's just somebody that people generally know about. Again, Jew, born in California. And actually, eventually, he had two sons, I believe, and I think they changed their last name in order to help protect them against things like anti-Semitism, which I think we all know what that means. And also, he made a lot of strip cartoons, which were a part of these illustrations that he did himself. And his most famous strip cartoon was one called Boob McNutt. And I've never read it, but that's just what I saw on the internet. Okay, so the first deliverable and try to conceptualize this, in our Rube Goldberg machine is the word inspire, inspiration. And I want you right now, close your eyes if you have to, whatever you got to do, get in this frame of mind. What is it that inspires you? Ask yourself that question. It may look the same for some people. It might look different. It could not even make any sense, but everybody has that answer. And so I think last week we'd mentioned this a little bit, and we'd actually had some really good comments in the chat last week in regards to our climate initiative and what that means for family and, the traditional family model and just the number of people that you are responsible for in the world and how that might influence the health of the globe. Just thinking about something bigger than yourself. But for a lot of people, family is inspirational. If you have children that are, even if they might get under your skin a little bit, I don't know how many parents we have with us here tonight, but they can be inspirational though. I think they definitely show you the peaks and the valleys, and those peaks can be so inspirational. Like I mentioned last week, my inspiration is in the planet and trying to sustain value in a way that doesn't hurt the very planet that we preoccupy. Another word for that would be stewardship. And so I guess in a way you could say that stewardship is what is inspirational to me. Not so much family. But I'm not anti-family. It's just like I said, and you have to understand this too, this is a very important point. I'm a very data-driven person, a very logical man. And because of that, I just look at the amount of people and the population on the globe and, what that means from a climate health and sustainability standpoint. It's a problem. Maybe it's a leader of some type. And, I didn't put my photo here to put any ideas in your head or try to direct the conversation one way or the other. But, I think it's fair to say that I am a leader, and a lot of us, for a lot of people, role models, leaders are who especially inspire each one of us. So it's just something to think about. What is it? What inspires you? I'm being serious. I really want you to ask yourself that question. What's inspirational to you? I see Joshua Wilson, one of our newer professional associates. He said pizza, and I love that transparency, Joshua. And that's exactly, getting down to the macro level of what is it that really gets your engine going. And knowing that, having that self-reflection is really cool. It's really impressive to me. And as your leader, I just love seeing that. Tom Haas again chiming in saying that he seeks praise and he's driven by positive reinforcement. So again, for inspiration, I think being emotional, sorry, I lost my train of thought there. Whether it's emotional, practical, or visible, inspiration is very big, and I welcome feedback. I want to be in a collaborative, psychologically safe environment with each one of you, and I have to say it right now. I think what Tom Haas offered there is really special. I think that he's showing a lot of promise so far, especially as we collaborate and talk about different ideas, and we look for ways to deliver on some of those KPIs, right? We're talking about technology, things like growth. Sustainability is another huge one that I know that I keep coming back to, but I really want to hammer this home for each one of you. And I can't be more clear. We need to be climate focused. So that's all I have to say on that. That stage of our Rube Goldberg, cat got my tongue. Excuse me. Apologize for that. Let's see if any new chats. So, like I mentioned, I think that, this is the one stage in that Rube Goldberg machine that I keep trying to talk about. And I know that it's tough to conceptualize, but if you would just hang with me here for a minute, think about what we're trying to do and all these efforts as they build on top of each other, how they ultimately align to the goal of value, and how that is going to ultimately be what, gets us there. Any questions on that? I think I really love the open communication tonight. I think that let's see here, Joshua Wilson. I disagree. So again, and I think that that's a great comment. I think playing, like I said earlier, I really want someone to be, if you're feeling a certain way, or you don't have to agree with everything. In fact, sometimes it's best to play devil's advocate just to kind of get some of that more interesting conversation going. And truthfully, the best problem solving happens when somebody disagrees and they speak up and say, "Oh, I see it from a different perspective," or "No, I think that although that's a good point, consider this." That's a great way to work through some of those conflicts. So I'll be looking forward to seeing how that gets resolved in the chat tonight. So as I mentioned earlier, we have our organization, right? And what is an organization? What fundamentally does it mean to be a part of an organization? Well, it means that you have your niche, you have your role, you have a clearly stated responsibility for what you are going after when it comes to work. And so I wanted to walk through what this organizational structure looks like. I developed this after, actually during one of my MBA courses, and I just kind of wanted to step through it. We'll break it down line by line. And the reason why it's so pertinent for the unification step is because when we're unified, this is really when we start to deliver that value. So at the very top, you have the C-suite. That's me, CEO and founder of the company. And again, I think that my qualifications speak for themselves. I think that as I continue to work with you, you start to get more and more comfortable with the idea that I do have that vision. I have that visionary, innovative outlook into things, especially when it comes to business. And in particular, we have these three categories in the middle: personnel, merchandising, and capital. The personnel department is the crown jewel. Aside from the C-suite, aside from me, it is the crown jewel of the organization, because what it ultimately means is being able to fill the organization with the people that are really going to get the engine going. And so if we're ever going to get to the point where the public company is global, if it's at the point where it's marketable and it's creating that value, it's going to start with the personnel department. So if that's something that might be something you might be interested in, please reach out to me, and we can facilitate that, and we can start moving toward that. So, and I'm sure you're looking at these other categories and looking at the associate level, and you might be asking yourself, what is that? Well, that's you. So currently everybody that's participating, everybody that has signed on to start to work here for the public company and go with me on this exciting venture, you are at that associate level. And I just wanted to clear that up, because throughout the week I did get some questions about what does this mean to be a part of this company? Who is here? Really, what is the point of this? And I'm really trying to answer that with this slide. And so, like I mentioned earlier, the unification and inspiration are two of the key steps, and it's because they're so relational. If you remember back to last week, I am that transformational leader, not so much transactional, but more of a relational kind of guy. And just look at this photo. Powerful stuff, These women are diverse and passionate, and they're very, when I picture our company, it basically looks exactly like this. And it just gets me really excited to think about the future. And if you're part of the personnel department, I think that this would be a good benchmark for you, is trying to strive toward what these women are doing in this picture. Is they're celebrating and clapping and dancing, and just looks like a joyous time. And it's something that is I think it's a celebration of humanity. It's a celebration of diversity. It's a celebration of beauty. And God, I hope that I can go to the next one. I don't know where this is. I truthfully have been I've been very taken by this setting here, and especially as a guy who's not, super emotional so much, okay? But I have just been moved by look at the expressions on the women's faces, and like I said, I think that right now we are at a very fragile state where this thing can go one way or the other, and I'd really like if we ended up tending more toward what we're seeing in this photograph here. I got that off the internet. So, what have we gone through so far, guys? Right, we've started by going through the deliverables and what that means, and again, try to think. I know you need to think abstractly about something like this, but a Rube Goldberg machine, what does that mean? That's what this structure is of our deliverables, because if we inspire and we're unified, we will get in a position to amplify. And that's ultimately what I want to talk through tonight with you all. As we start to brainstorm, how do we amplify our brand? How do we cascade out what the message is and what the mission is for the public company? How do we expand our network? What's going to create that big buzz that's going to be so exciting for everybody as they think about, okay, the public company, I've been hearing a lot about who they are. I've been seeing the live streams and all the analytics that are showing their explosive growth. I've been seeing the social media. I've been talking to my uncles and my cousins and people at the supermarket, and everybody's just, man, what is this? This is the public company. What's going on there? Something about unification and amplifying things and fair business, and I'm just excited. I want to join. The problem with that is you really need to have like a real message and a real goal, and ultimately I think that's where we need to start. And so we need a catalyst to get us going, and this is not me making a executive decision for the group. I want this to be a collaborative environment, and like I said, I want it to be psychologically safe. But in the picture here is Miss Martha Stewart, and I would love for her to be the catalyst that we strive for as the chief consultant for the company. It's something that we are very excited about, just talking about Martha. And, as I've been thinking about, man, what it would be like to interview somebody like Martha Stewart, and really level with her on exactly, this is where we are. This is the baseline. This is the things that we're measuring, as far as trying to measure what our improvement is in our different metrics and things like that. And I just look at her and it's just is like, oh my goodness, she's such a, if you don't know anything about Martha Stewart, I'm going to be getting into it in the next slide. Don't worry about that. I think that she is inspirational, and I really do think that she would be great to, one, kind of propagate out our message. I think that it would be a good platform for expanding out what the public company is, and then, and two, I think she would just have some really key insights into what would improve a few things. And another thing that I've been thinking about as we've been going down this road is that we really need to start quantifying more data. I want to be a data-driven company. I don't want to just talk the talk, but I truly want to start analyzing more data and using that to communicate with you guys, because data is foundational to everything. If you have data, you can say literally whatever you want. For example, let me share a quick story, something from my background that I think is very pertinent for this type of conversation. So I remember years ago, I'll never forget it. I was at this convention in Orlando, and it's one of these, you've been to one, you've been to them all. Everybody's walking around with their laminate necklaces on, and we're rubbing shoulders with different professionals that are all kind of like-minded and have the same goal, and it's a great opportunity to network and everything. Well, the keynote speaker for for the conference, for the seminar in Orlando, was Mr. Harold Kitchener. And I kid you not, it was Harold Kitchener, who I think that, I don't think that I need to do much more introducing exactly, who that is, but, he's the venture capitalist, needless to say, deep pockets, just a titan of industry, who he was the keynote speaker at the seminar in Orlando. And I want to say it was the early 2000s, 2002, 2001. So he gives a overview for the keynote speaking, basically on like what are the current economic challenges, and how do we use our abilities to overcome these challenges, and what does it mean for the future? He's such a visionary. He's always looking out. I remember one part of the speech. He goes, a lot of people, they don't look much further than right in front of them. He's like, I'm always looking outward. I'm always looking beyond where everybody else is. Like almost, he's just such a visionary. And again, huge venture capitalist. He's, at the top of this conglomerate of businesses that, revenue well above hundreds of billions of dollars. So anyway, he gives this overview. Harold Kitchener. I mean, it's still like, I remember pinching myself when I was there, just being like, I can't believe they got Harold Kitchener. So anyway, and he's kind of a tough guy, If you've ever watched Harold speak, it's very intimidating in a way, and I just always use him as like a role model. Maybe I should have put him on the slide. But anyhow, he has a Q&A at the end. And mind you, again, we're talking about Harold Kitchener, titan of industry. For most people, they were there for one reason and one reason only, and it was for Mr. Kitchener. So we do the Q&A. First couple questions are just a couple softballs, a couple real generic, how do you see things panning out in a few years? And can you share a little bit more about what this challenge was like and blah, 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 not very insightful questions. Well, so the third guy comes up, and this is the part I'll never forget. This third kid comes up, and I swear to you, he's green. I mean, I'm talking this guy maybe fresh out of undergrad. I was pretty green at that time too. I briefly talked to him at the snack bar, between sessions, and I believe too, and during one of the networking opportunities, him and a few other venture capitalists were speaking, and an entrepreneur who's looking to do his own startup with this toffee bar company, and we don't keep in touch anymore, but I do remember talking to him, and I'm talking fresh out of high school, baby-faced, green, hasn't done nothing, but apparently smart as a whip, because listen to this. So Harold Kitchener gives this, it is a rousing speech, and everybody is super excited. I think I'm feeling like I want to run through a wall, right? Like he's got us all going. So the kid, he steps up to the mic and he asks this question that flies right in the face of everything that Harold was talking about all night. It couldn't have been more blatantly, in your face, like this is just wrong. And so he steps up and he asks this question, and you could hear a pin drop. The whole place is just like, what did he say? And turns out, mind you, Harold's a tough guy. And I remember elbowing the guy next to me and going, can you believe that? And it actually went fine for the kid. And I think he actually ended up working for one of his companies, because even though he disagreed with Mr. Kitchener, he used the data to back it up. And I'll never forget that. So if you speak with data, if you use metrics, that's exactly, that's the testimonial that I'm really trying to, I always want you to remember that, is that, even though he was green, this kid, he couldn't have weighed more than 120 pounds sopping wet, probably didn't know anything, but he had the data and the analytics behind his question, And because of that, he gained a lot of respect. I didn't even get to talk to him the rest of the seminar, and it went fine for him because he had the numbers to back it up. So just something to think about. But yeah, I'll never forget that. So back to Martha. A little bit of history on Martha Stewart. First self-made female billionaire in the United States. The things I like about her, she's an excellent teacher. She's a master of her craft, educated, and she demands excellence. The more you learn about Martha and take in more of her comments and her wisdom, you start to understand and see like she holds a very high standard for all those underneath her. And two, she's very well known and very well liked. So, and she's not Jewish. She was married to a Jewish man, but they ended up getting divorced. But that's neither here nor there. Martha, though, she is a very, especially for a woman during this time, you know how it can be for women in the workplace. I really strive to make sure that the public company is nothing like that. So she started her career as a stockbroker, 67, was successful with that. Then she began her catering business within her basement at her house, and she really started to gain a lot of clout with that and started to gain a lot of popularity. And so because of that, she had a lot of a large following when it came to doing things like catering parties and providing for things like that and being a hostess. And from that born a lot of different media opportunities for her. It accumulated right at the beginning with her first cookbook, and through her Jewish husband at the time, his publishing company, and then from there it grew into a public offering. And so the thing that I really like about Martha's story, though, is that she did fall back. She was prosecuted for a felony in the early 2000s, right around that Orlando seminar, and she was convicted by James Comey. I'm sure you've heard of him or know who that is. So anyway, so she goes through a rebrand and she comes back eventually, and now she's friends with Snoop Dogg. And I think the thing about Martha that I really have grown to love is her drive, and she demands a certain respect about her. And I think that this doesn't have to be the catalyst that we go for as we pursue interviews. And I don't think we should start there. I think she's at a nice level of exposure that we could potentially obtain for a consulting interview. But as we continue to move along, I'll be looking forward to potentially some feedback from you guys on who would be a good consultant to start to pursue, and who ultimately we think would be a good fit as we continue to start to move toward ultimately having an interview with Martha Stewart, right? This is exciting stuff. And so I noticed that as I started talking through Martha here and, her as a general catalyst, I think that, when we meet back up here next week and as we continue to start evaluating some of the content from the public company, I think it would be good to continue to work through who do we want that catalyst to be and what is the timeline, right? I think that, Martha, she's attainable as a consultant and to really gain some exposure as we continue to pump out the value at the public company. But ultimately, if she's not the right fit, I'm open to other opportunities and other options. But man, I think it would be really special. I think it'd be something very special. So lastly, the last part of the Rube Goldberg machine is the creation part. And I think that this is where we really have no idea what we're doing. Because I noticed last week as I started to continue to work through things, some of the clerical things with the public company and trying to build our brand, I noticed that nothing is really being done. And there's not really any creation happening. There's not any value being provided. And this is a problem, right? So if we're going to become equitable, if we're going to start seeing that cash flow, we need to start creating something. And, I did want to be openly transparent about, during our discussions here, during our touch points, if you have an idea, please share it in the chat. I'm looking forward to seeing more comments, more collaboration. Joshua and Tom, you guys were champions tonight, and I want to continue to do a lot of this collaborative work as we explore these things together. So lastly, let's see here. Any comments or questions on that? I know it was a lot tonight. Let's see here. I'm here for one reason and one reason only, the mustache from Tom Haas 16. Thank you. Joshua Wilson, when will this be over? It's not over yet. There's no real timeline on, I'm not totally sure what you're getting at with that question, if you're talking about the touch point tonight or the pursuit of Martha Stewart, but the touch point will be ending here shortly. So we continue to wind down. It's been a long week. I think that we can all kind of agree that it was a challenging week. I feel like I was on the phone, sometimes feeling like 24/7, just trying to get caught up and chase down every potential lead that I could find. But again, it's not coming together very well, but I do think that we can continue to work together and support each other on that. Okay. Joshua Wilson, I don't like the touch points. Any other questions on that? So I will say that the touch points, that's constructive feedback. But one thing I will say is that I think that it's important that we do some of the heavy lifting early on as we start to get this venture off the ground. It's not going to be easy. And I did want to start integrating a little bit more of a collaborative environment here within the live stream and during these touch points that we'll have every week. At the end of this quarter, we'll have some very exciting metrics that we'll be looking to share out. And another headwind for us is just this lag with the chat. I mentioned that earlier. It's tough to workshop things together when there's such a lag with the stream. So these are all the, let me try to bear with me here for